AI-powered LiDAR just revealed over 26,000 previously unknown ancient structures buried beneath the Amazon rainforest. Not villages, not simple settlements. Massive earthworks, ceremonial centers, and interconnected urban complexes that suggest a civilization with a population estimated between 10 to 20 million people. That's larger than medieval Europe. And we had no idea they existed until a computer analyzed terrain data and found geometric patterns beneath 200-foot-tall trees that have hidden them for 500 years. The discovery was published in January 2024, and it's forcing archaeologists to rewrite everything they thought they knew about pre-Columbian America. Here's what the AI found, why it's terrifying for our understanding of history, and why there might be dozens more civilizations buried under rainforests that we've never detected. For 200 years, archaeologists explored the Amazon on foot, hacking through jungle. Finding scattered pottery and small villages, they concluded the rainforest could never support large populations. The soil was too poor, the environment too hostile. Pre-Columbian Amazonia was sparsely populated with small tribes. That was the consensus. Then LiDAR changed everything. Light detection and ranging shoots millions of laser pulses from aircraft, penetrating tree canopy and mapping ground elevation with centimeter precision. In 2018, archaeologists used LiDAR in Guatemala and found 60,000 Mayan structures nobody knew existed. The technology proved that rainforests were hiding entire civilizations. But here's what made the Amazon discovery different. The amount of data was overwhelming. LiDAR generates billions of data points. Human archaeologists can analyze small areas, but examining thousands of square miles of terrain data would take decades. So they fed the LiDAR data into machine learning algorithms trained to recognize geometric patterns and artificial earthworks. The AI found 26,000 structures in areas where archaeologists previously found nothing. Not because archaeologists were incompetent, because the structures are invisible at ground level. The jungle completely obscures them. Only from above, with LiDAR penetrating vegetation and AI recognizing patterns, do they become visible. The structures include massive earthen mounds up to 20 meters tall, geometric enclosures covering hundreds of hectares, raised causeways connecting settlements across floodplains, and ceremonial platforms arranged in precise astronomical alignments. This isn't random. This is urban planning on a scale that requires centralized authority, engineering knowledge, and a massive labor force. The megastructures fall into several categories, and each one reveals something terrifying about how wrong our historical understanding was. First, the geoglyphs. Massive geometric earthworks etched into the landscape, some stretching over 300 meters across. Perfect circles, squares, and hexagons that required moving hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of earth. Archaeologists previously thought these were rare ceremonial sites. The AI found thousands of them. They're everywhere. But here's what that means. Creating these earthworks required organized labor on an industrial scale. We're talking about coordinating hundreds or thousands of workers to dig perfectly geometric patterns into the earth over years or decades. This level of social organization doesn't happen in small scattered tribes. It happens in complex societies with hierarchy, division of labor, and engineering expertise. Second, the raised platforms and mounds. Some are 20 meters tall, which doesn't sound impressive until you realize they're made entirely of earth that was moved by hand. Millions of basket loads of soil, piled and compacted over generations. The AI found these mounds clustered in groups of 10 to 50, suggesting they weren't isolated monuments, but parts of larger urban centers. Here's the terrifying part. Each mound cluster likely represents a town or city. The AI found over 1,000 of these clusters. If each cluster housed even 5,000 to 10,000 people, we're looking at a total population of 10 to 20 million across the Amazon basin. For context, that's larger than the entire population of England in 1500, and we didn't know they existed until 2024. Raised causeways connecting settlements across floodplains and swamps. Some of these causeways stretch for dozens of kilometers. Elevated above seasonal flooding, connecting urban centers into regional networks. This isn't villages trading with neighbors. This is long-distance infrastructure connecting a civilization. But here's what archaeologists are realizing. The Amazon wasn't a pristine wilderness. It was managed landscape. These civilizations didn't just live in the rainforest. They engineered it. They built raised fields for agriculture, created terra preta, nutrient-rich artificial soil, and managed forest composition by planting useful species. The Amazon we think of as untouched nature is actually a 500-year-old regrowth forest covering the ruins of massive human-engineered ecosystems. The terrifying part isn't that we found ancient cities. It's that we had no idea they were there. Despite 200 years of archaeology, despite satellite imagery, despite decades of rainforest exploration, we completely missed a civilization that was larger than medieval Europe. And we only found it because AI analyzed terrain data that humans couldn't process. Here's what that implies. If 26,000 structures were invisible to archaeologists walking through the jungle, how many more are still hidden? The LiDAR survey covered only about 0.1% of the Amazon basin. If the density of structures is consistent across the rest of the rainforest, there could be 26 million structures still undetected. That number isn't speculation. That's basic math extrapolating from surveyed areas to total area. But it gets worse. The Amazon isn't the only rainforest. The Congo Basin in Africa is larger than the Amazon and has never been systematically surveyed with LiDAR. Southeast Asian rainforests cover millions of square kilometers. The possibility that we've missed entire civilizations in multiple rainforests is no longer theoretical. We just proved it's possible by missing one until 2024. The implications cascade. If pre-Columbian Amazonia had 10 to 20 million people, that changes population estimates for the entire Western Hemisphere. Before European contact, the Americas might have had 100 million people or more, not the 50 million that most textbooks claim. That means European diseases killed even more people than we thought. Some estimates now suggest 90% population collapse within a century of contact. But here's the most disturbing realization. These civilizations vanished almost without trace. The structures are there, but the people are gone. The diseases brought by Europeans in the 1500s killed so many people so quickly that entire societies collapsed before Europeans ever penetrated deep into the Amazon. By the time explorers and archaeologists arrived centuries later, the jungle had reclaimed everything. All that remained were scattered indigenous tribes who were the survivors of demographic catastrophe, not representatives of original population density. We've been studying post-apocalyptic populations and assumed that's what pre-Columbian Amazonia always looked like. It's like aliens landing on Earth 500 years after nuclear war, finding scattered survivors, and concluding humans always lived in small primitive groups. The Amazon has been hiding evidence of genocide by disease that killed millions of people whose civilizations we're only now discovering existed. For decades, archaeologists believed complex societies in the Americas developed late. Mesoamerica and the Andes had cities, but the Amazon was too hostile for civilization. The timeline went like this. Small tribes emerged around 2000 BCE. They remained small and scattered. By 1500 CE, when Europeans arrived, Amazonia was sparsely populated rainforest with maybe 1 to 2 million people total. The AI-analyzed structures show that timeline is fiction. Carbon dating of sites revealed by LiDAR shows construction beginning around 1500 BCE, with major expansion between 500 BCE and 1500 CE. That's 3,000 years of continuous occupation and development. These weren't new societies just emerging when Europeans arrived. They were ancient civilizations that had been building and expanding for millennia. But here's what makes the timeline terrifying. If Amazonian civilizations were developing complex societies in 1500 BCE, They're as old as classical Greece and older than Rome. They were building massive earthworks and urban centers when Europe was still in the Bronze Age. The idea that complex civilization was a European or Mediterranean achievement is Eurocentric blindness. Complex societies emerged independently across the world, including in environments we thought couldn't support them. The structures show phases of construction and abandonment. Some sites were occupied continuously for over 1,000 years. Others show periods of intense construction followed by abandonment and later reoccupation. This isn't what simple tribal societies do. This is what complex states do. They expand, they collapse, they reorganize, they rebuild. The Amazon had its own cycles of rise and fall that parallel civilizations elsewhere. We just never knew to look for them. The AI didn't just find random mounds and ditches. The structures showed deliberate planning, astronomical alignments, and engineering sophistication that required mathematical and astronomical knowledge. The geometric enclosures are precisely oriented. Multiple sites show structures aligned to solstices, equinoxes, or specific star positions. This isn't accidental. These are observatories, ceremonial centers designed around celestial events. Creating these alignments requires multi-generational astronomical observation, mathematical calculation, and surveying precision. But here's what that reveals. These societies had specialists, astronomer priests who tracked celestial movements over decades, engineers who could translate astronomical knowledge into ground-level construction, surveyors who could lay out perfect circles and squares across hundreds of meters of terrain. This level of specialization requires surplus food production, social hierarchy, and educational institutions to train specialists. That's state-level civilization. The raised field systems show agricultural engineering. These aren't natural features. They're artificial planting surfaces elevated above seasonal flooding, with canals for water management and fish farming. Some systems cover thousands of hectares. Building and maintaining them required coordinating labor across communities and managing water flow across landscapes. This is hydraulic engineering on a scale that demands centralized planning. The pottery and artifacts found at these sites show long-distance trade networks. Materials and styles from the Andes, the Caribbean, and the Atlantic coast appear at Amazonian sites, hundreds or thousands of kilometers from their origin. These civilizations weren't isolated. They were connected in regional trade networks that spanned the continent. But here's the pattern that keeps emerging. Everything we thought about pre-Columbian Amazonia was based on post-collapse populations. We studied the survivors and assumed that was the baseline. It's like studying Europe in 600 CE after the Western Roman Empire fell and concluding Europeans never built cities or roads. We missed an entire epoch of human history because we couldn't see through the trees. Here's the only reason we know about these civilizations at all. They built with earth instead of stone. Stone monuments survive jungle overgrowth and remain visible. Earth mounds get covered by vegetation and vanish from view. This actually preserved them. Stone structures would have been looted, destroyed, or dismantled by later inhabitants or European colonizers. Earth structures were simply forgotten under tree growth. But here's the irony. The technology that made their monuments invisible is what allowed them to survive to be discovered. If they'd built stone pyramids like the Maya, we would have found and probably destroyed them centuries ago. Earth mounds looked like natural hills, so they were ignored. Only LiDAR and AI could distinguish artificial mounds from natural topography at scale. The preservation is accidental, but nearly complete. Unlike stone ruins that are weathered, looted, and damaged, these earthworks are largely intact under vegetation. Once excavated, they provide archaeological data about construction methods, occupation patterns, and daily life that stone monuments don't preserve. We're getting better data about these civilizations than we have about many stone-building cultures. But here's what this means for future discoveries. LiDAR can penetrate vegetation but not water or thick ice. There could be entire civilizations under rainforest canopy, or submerged by rising sea levels, or buried under ice that we have no way to detect yet. The technology to find them doesn't exist. The Amazon discovery proves that absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Just because we haven't found something doesn't mean it isn't there. The textbook narrative of human civilization just collapsed. The story went like this. Civilization emerged in Mesopotamia around 3000 BCE, then Egypt, then the Indus Valley, then China. The Americas were late bloomers. The Amazon was never civilized at all. That story is now provably wrong. The Americas had multiple independent centers of civilization development: Mesoamerica, the Andes. And now we know the Amazon. These weren't colonies or outposts of Old World civilizations. They were independent trajectories of human social complexity developing in parallel. The Amazon civilizations don't look like Mesopotamian city-states because they solved different environmental challenges with different technologies. But here's the revolutionary realization. There's no single path to civilization. The Old World model with stone cities, writing systems, and metal working isn't universal. Amazonian civilizations built with earth likely used knotted strings or other perishable record-keeping, and worked primarily with stone and wood tools. They were just as complex socially and politically. They just looked different archaeologically. The definition of civilization itself is being rewritten. Social complexity, labor coordination, engineering knowledge, and political organization are what matter. The Amazon had all of that. We just couldn't see it because we were looking for stone pyramids and alphabetic writing. But here's what scares historians. If we completely missed 26,000 structures and 10 to 20 million people in the Amazon, what else have we missed? The assumption that we know the basic outline of human history is now questionable. Major civilizations could be hiding under vegetation, underwater, or in areas we've dismissed as inhospitable. Our map of human civilization is full of blank spaces we thought were empty, but might actually be full. The machine learning algorithms that found these structures are improving exponentially. The first generation could identify obvious geometric patterns. The current generation can distinguish artificial mounds from natural hills with 95% accuracy. The next generation will be able to predict site locations based on environmental factors and settlement patterns without even scanning them first. But here's where it gets unsettling. As AI gets better at pattern recognition, it will find more structures and data we've already collected. LiDAR surveys from years ago are being reanalyzed with new algorithms, and researchers keep finding things human analysts missed the first time. The Amazon data from 2018 has been reanalyzed 3 times now. Each iteration finds more structures. The 26,000 number is already outdated. By the time you're watching this, it's probably 30,000 or more. The implications are staggering. We don't need to wait for new surveys. We can point AI at existing satellite data, terrain data, and ground-penetrating radar data, and it will find civilizations we drove over without noticing. Every year, the algorithms improve. Every year, they find more. The question isn't whether there are more lost civilizations. The question is, how many and where? This isn't terrifying in a supernatural way. It's terrifying because it proves how little we actually know. We thought we understood pre-Columbian America. We thought we'd found the major civilizations. We were wrong by an order of magnitude. We missed millions of people living in thousands of settlements because we couldn't see past the trees. But here's what that means for everything else. If archaeology got the Amazon this wrong, what else is wrong? How many other empty regions are actually full of ruins we can't detect? How many civilizations rose and fell without leaving evidence we know how to recognize? How much of human history is still buried, submerged, or hidden under vegetation waiting for the right technology to reveal it? The Amazon discovery is terrifying because it's probably just the beginning. LiDAR surveys are planned or underway in the Congo Basin, Southeast Asia, and other tropical regions. AI is being trained on the Amazon data to recognize similar patterns elsewhere. Within the next decade, we're likely to find multiple more lost civilizations. Each discovery will force us to revise population estimates, cultural development timelines, and our understanding of human social complexity. And here's the most unsettling part. We found these civilizations because they were big enough and recent enough to leave detectable traces. What about the ones that are older, deeper, built with materials that don't survive? The Amazon civilizations collapsed 500 years ago, and we only just found them. What about civilizations that collapsed 5,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, before the end of the Ice Age, when sea levels were 400 feet lower and coastlines extended far beyond current shores? The confident statement that we know human history is looking less defensible every year. We know some human history, the parts that built in stone, rode on durable materials, and happened in regions archaeologists have intensively studied. Everything else is speculation, gaps, and assumptions we're now discovering were wrong. The Amazon just proved that millions of people can live in thousands of cities for thousands of years and vanish so completely that it takes AI analyzing laser scans to prove they existed at all. That's not just a historical curiosity. That's a terrifying statement about how fragile historical memory is and how much we've already forgotten about our own species. If it happened once, it happened more than once. And AI is about to show us just how much we never knew we didn't know.